Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my LinkedIn Lives. I'm Jasmine Navarro, certified wellbeing expert, working with educational institutions and companies, helping them support their family wellbeing challenges. As you know, every week I interview different experts who make a difference. Today, I'm super excited to be interviewing Berna. Hi, Berna. Thank you so much for joining.
Hi, Jasmine. Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So, born and bred South African, had the opportunity to move to the UAE with my lovely family, 2 boys and my husband, in 2009. Education psychologist by training, but teaching is my first love. And when we came to the UAE, there wasn't really lots of inclusion going on, especially for students with special needs. And my youngest is a young man with cerebral palsy diagnosis, and we couldn't find a school for him. And I then went to visit the KCA, and Mr. Hassan Aboud said to me, "But you're a teacher, Berna, go back into teaching." And that's how I found my passion back into teaching. I then joined GEMS Education in 2012, and both my boys have actually very recently completed their A-levels in GEMS schools in the UK. I was in the UK for a bit also with GEMS, and then have the wonderful opportunity to be back in the UAE from January last year in the role of corporate head of inclusion, looking after all our GEMS schools in MENA and the UAE, and the inclusion piece, which is so close to my heart.
Oh, wow. That sounds absolutely amazing. By the way, I've had so many questions and comments already about this live, because it's such a hot topic at the moment, isn't it? But yeah, you chose inclusion at heart, open talk on people of determination and well-being. I absolutely love that. Can you tell us a bit more about what that means and why you chose it for today?
I think when we work with students of determination, or when you have a child in your house that has some needs, it's always tricky to know where to start. And as educators, we are so passionate about the inclusion piece, trying to think about what comes next instead of looking at what we have now. And sometimes we have these mindsets that says we have to fix something. And today is International Day for Autism. And it is on the 2nd of April. And it always reminds me that awareness is the starting point. Because when we start breaking down barriers, we look further than just access. There's a brilliant American psychologist called Dr. Shelley Moore. She does this podcast, 5 More Minutes. And she always says that inclusion is so multifaceted. It's no longer you go from being with people to being included, but it's more about being supported so that you can belong. And I think that for me is the big piece. When we look at the challenges that our students face, they are not alone. Our teachers are key. Another great author, Dr. Brad Johnson, said the other day, he posted and he said, "From ABCs to PhDs, the teachers make the difference." And for me personally, as teachers, we often have this thing about we need to support the child to get somewhere instead of looking at where we are now and what can we do with what we have right now. Yes, we have to be future focused. And as a parent, of course, you want your child to have a brilliant future. But sometimes we are so focused on what comes next that we don't really spend the time in the now. And that is what breaking the barriers means. When we look at belonging and well-being for our children, we are actually talking about how do I fit in with my community right now, not what will I one day become.
Oh, that is absolutely, I love that. I love everything that you're saying, because it's so profound and it's so simple. And actually everything you were saying, I think it's a message for actually everybody in all areas of our lives, right? Because we do that so often anyway, don't we? Like thinking about the future and not really enjoying the present, or making the most of the present, or being grateful for the present, or seeing the opportunities in the present, or seeing how we can better everything now, right this second. So, I love everything you're saying. I just think it's so valuable. And I think actually it makes things a lot easier than people sometimes think, because if you're always chasing for something in the future, you feel like it's out of reach, don't you? But actually have a look at, realize everything you have.
Absolutely. And well-being, you know this about well-being, is when we are so future focused, we forget about looking after ourselves. Yeah. And I had this wonderful quote the other day where somebody said, You don't know what you're going to need in 5 years, but you do know what you need now. And if you don't start looking after yourself now, in 5 years, there won't be much left to look after.
Wow.
And I think with the well-being piece is when students truly feel supported, when they truly feel like they belong, when they feel like they are enough and not just in the room, because that's a big, big threat to full inclusion. When they are not just granting access, but they're actually granting opportunities to belong for who they are, they can thrive. And we also know that success breeds success. Happy children learn.
Yeah.
And I think that is key. And what happens with our teachers often is, as I say, we chase this thing because we are also, as teachers, measured, if I can use that word, against the success of our students.
Definitely.
And sometimes we don't sit in the mud with them. We try to pull them out, and we don't ask the children often, what do they need in that moment?
Wow. Oh, yeah. I love that. Sitting in the mud with them. It's like coaching as well. It just reminds me of coaching because that's exactly how that is. It's like being with them, not being superior or anything like that. No, brilliant. I love everything you're saying. I've got a question here actually from Tanya. Hi, Tanya. How are you doing? She says, what are some of the biggest challenges that people of determination face and how can we address them?
That's a brilliant question, Tanya, and I think it depends on the age. So one of the biggest challenges we see for students of determination is school places. There's just not enough space in our schools that can cater to the need. So when you look at the UAE, for instance, and I always say, please remember the UAE is 54 years old. We are doing amazing things. And if you look at the last 15 years, the world of inclusion has grown and expanded in such a way that we are one of the only countries in the world that has a compliance component to inclusion that is measured and tracked and followed through, and a quality of provision. So most places have quality provision or compliance, but actually here we say compliance is not enough. We need to do better for our children. So the first bit is getting our children into schools. Now, last year, September, so 2024 September, we had about 35,000 new students just to the UAE piece. That's not all inclusion students. Those are all students that came to the UAE looking for school places. Wow, and what we see is that national average for students of determination is around about 7.5–8% of diagnosis. Okay. But we do know internationally that looks more like 17 to 20%. So we have this issue where we have an underdiagnosed cohort of students also. But the first step is getting into a school. Now, once a child is in school, we also know that having a child with any specific need or any additional need is very, very expensive because you pay school fees, then you might need an LSA or a learning support assistant, then all of the therapies. The job of a mum or a dad with a child with special needs is always a very, very lonely bit because you drive from therapy to therapy, trying to figure things out, trying to be there where your child needs you to be while still having a full-time job because you need the full-time job to pay for everything. So it's the cost, it's the seats in school. And then the third thing is the availability of services, affordable services. Now, I know Dubai has this image of, it's only rich people who live here. But actually, if you look at the amount of students that we have, so in GEMS, I'm just going to use GEMS as an example. Okay. We have 170,000 students, all across the world. In Dubai, we have close to 15,000 students of determination on our books. So that's a lot of students who need support somewhere. And where possible, the education authorities do take some of that on. And, in schools, we support those students. But where the student need more support than the school can give, it becomes very, very costly. And where we have schools, for instance, in the GENS group, that is $1,000 per year, those parents don't have money to pay for 4,500 dirhams worth of its psych assessment or, therapies or things like that. So it's those affordable piece as well, because absolutely the education that our students get in the UAE, and I'm not just talking about GEMS, if you look at all of the education that our students get, it is world class. There's some amazing things going on in our schools. But it is very, very tricky. Then the next piece, so as I said, it's a little bit age-wise, because the next piece is what happens after school. So at the moment in the UAE, ASTAN is not recognized, doesn't get equivalency in terms of career paths like it does in other parts of the world, or many other parts of the world. It is a piece of work that the UAE is currently looking at. But what next? Because if you have a student who didn't get the A levels, or didn't do high school certification through NIASC, or didn't do the IB diploma, or didn't get the CBSE, what comes next for them in a country like Dubai? So that college piece, that vocational training piece is then the next bit. And then thirdly is the employment piece. There are such wonderful things going on, like the Butterfly Project. And, you know, I know that the Dubai Center for Tourism and those guys are doing amazing things. But it's just not enough yet, because we don't really have spots for all our children.
Wow. It's like it's really positive what you said, but actually it's like bittersweet, isn't it? Because then it's like there's not enough places. Yeah, I know. Thank you for sharing all of that. So what can we do as you know, as teachers, as parents, as individuals to sort of help support this?
I always think that awareness is the first thing, because acceptance and belonging come through awareness. So if we talk about our students of determination, we talk about this child that I know, or my child's friend, I think that's incredibly important. And also checking our own biases, because sometimes we decide what a child is able to do, or we decide what a child is not supposed to be doing in terms of their future careers. And actually that's more to do with us than with them. So I think checking our own biases and then upskilling ourselves. There's this amazing poem by a lady. The poem's name is Welcome to Holland. And it's about the mum's journey. She falls pregnant and she thinks she's going to France like all her friends. And she learns a bit of French, and she sees the Eiffel Tower, she's ready to go. And then the pilot says, Welcome to Holland. And suddenly she's not where she wanted to be. She's not where everybody else is. And it's a lonely, lonely journey until she realizes that Holland's got beautiful things too. They've got tulips and stroopwafels and just amazing things as well. And sometimes as a community, we are so busy with our children, which is absolutely correct, because that's our jobs, that we sometimes forget the parents as well. We don't invite them in. And, you know, that whole piece about sitting in the mud with the child, sometimes you have to sit in the mud with the parent. And when a parent is having that lonely life of driving around and trying to make plans and trying to get the best for their children, they're often viewed as difficult parents. But that's your job. When you've got a child with any need, that's your job. You have to fight for your child. And as a community, we need to be better at supporting those parents as well.
Oh, yeah, that's so important. And I think, loneliness can just make things 1,000 times harder than what they need to be when you're feeling alone. Because, not even, just like you said about raising awareness, having conversations. You know, a parent can just have a conversation with somebody who cares. They feel so much better, and it helps you feel like this is possible. I can do something. Things can get better. Gives them hope.
Or I'm being heard. You know, even though you can't fix it, at least somebody's listening.
Yes, definitely.
And then the last bit of it as well is anybody with influence, if there is a way that you can create awareness in your companies, for instance, and talk about students of determination. And there's loads and loads of our neurodiverse population that's living and breathing in the working world that nobody even knows. So it is one of those things that, you know, unless it's a visible disability, people often don't know. But make yourself aware, and also just be access aware. So it's an interesting thing that you have these steps to get to the lift.
Yeah.
But the wheelchair child or the wheelchair adult can't get up the 5 stairs to get to the lift. So it's little things like that until you actually need to be aware of it, we often are not.
Absolutely. And we've just got a comment here. Hi there, how are you doing? Shrikayla, I'm not sure how to say that. Sorry. She says, the issue of lifelong support for the students with special needs is very relevant, especially the points about plans after school.
Yes, Shrikala, I totally agree. And I think what's happening now is there is a huge move towards it. And there's more and more companies who's getting involved and who wants to support our students. But we do have a little bit of a cohort currently that's finished school in the last, I want to say just before COVID till now. And I suspect most of them are either back in their home countries, or they are at home because there's just no options. We've recently looked at the whole people of determination Emirati piece. So there's loads of people of determination who are Emiratis who are employable and they can't find jobs. Why is it so difficult? So Shrikala, I totally agree with you, and I think, as I said in the beginning, it is so important for our students to also have a future vision, because everybody has a dream.
I love that. And everyone's, has the right to have a dream.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another question here from Jacob. Hi, Jacob. How are you doing? He says, we sort of touched on this, but what misconceptions do you think people still have about people of determination, and how can we shift those narratives?
Well, that's incredibly important, because one of the biggest misconceptions that community and society have of people of determination is that the behavior that we often see depicted on TV and in movies is the behavior to be expected. Mm-hmm. And if that is your only exposure to students of determination or people of determination, then you are in this bubble that is unreal. Because when you start talking about autism, for instance, people often bring up, like Rain Man. No, autism is nothing like Rain Man.
Yeah.
So oftentimes we have these misconceptions, and unless you've actually upskilled yourself, and as I said, the best way to do it is to actually go out and find people in your community. Now in Dubai and in the UAE, we are incredibly lucky. We have what is called the Unified Games. We have the Special Olympics. We have loads of organizations who are actually looking after this piece for us. And if you in your community want to learn about these things, reach out and get involved, because that is how you know. There's a brilliant community called Different Not Worse, and Still Value to be Included is another one. And there's specific organizations for children with Down syndrome. There's specific organizations with children with autism, the Dyslexia Foundation. So there's so much going on. But as a community, we need to get better at looking for those opportunities to learn.
Definitely. If you do have any links later, if you wouldn't mind putting them on the posts so people could just click. That would be amazing. No, thanks. And hi, Sonia. Sonia says the support for the parent is often as key as the children, because they are often neurodivergent, are going through the journey of discovery and acceptance.
Absolutely, Sonia. And we know a lot of research already tells us that neurodiversity runs in families. So I personally I've been diagnosed with ADHD, but only at 22. And my eldest, who's 20, he's got an ADHD diagnosis. So it's definitely in families. And I think one of the pieces that's so relevant today internationally is that we should also, when a child is diagnosed, speak to the parent about what their experience was. And it's often one of heartbreak, where a parent also never had that belonging piece, and the child's journey then reminds them of that as well. So you're absolutely right, Sonia. And I think in the end of the day, again, going back to looking at what do we know and what do we think we know and what is the truth about these conditions.
Brilliant. And again, it's about communication. All comes back to that again, doesn't it? And Shrikala says, thank you, Berna. Would love to be part of any program that focuses on building post-school opportunities for students with special needs. Thank you so much. And Sonia says, I've never come across the phrase people of determination. Is it the same as neurodiverse?
So the history of people of determination, I always smile because I absolutely love it, is when the EU looked at their inclusion strategy and their framework, they looked at all of the terminology, the disabilities and people that's disabled, and there's loads of terms that float around. And they then decided to actually look at a positive term, and they asked people who are struggling with these things, whether it's neurodiversity, whether it's wheelchair, whether it's genetic conditions. So the whole piece of SEND, as we call it in other countries, special needs, is actually taken into the term people of determination, because if you have any need, whether that is a special educational need, whether that's a social emotional need, or whether that is just a physical need, so you can't walk as fast as other people. You have to work at least twice as hard as everybody else to get the same result. And that is why we call it people of determination.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you for asking, Sonia, because other people might have been thinking the same. Right. Well, we've got 5 minutes left, but we could talk about this for hours, I think. But let's talk a little bit about well-being. So what strategies can individuals adopt to support the holistic well-being of people of determination?
I think the golden rule is listening to what our people of determination tell us, just like every other child. Now, a student with determination issues might often have frustration, might often have behavioral things that stem out of the fact that their needs aren't being met. And we know that all behavior is communication. Now, if you do want to read a brilliant book, it's called Lost at School by Dr. Ross Greene from the US. And in his book, he actually writes about this whole behavior piece that's so prevalent at the moment, that's linked to the anxious generation that we see. And what we see is if a child's needs aren't being met, whether that is a physical need, whether that is a learning need, whether that's an emotional need, we will see these behaviors. And these behaviors can either be they withdraw or they act out, but it's all communication. And I think if we look at the well-being piece, it's so incredibly important, especially for students of determination, because they often don't have the communication skills or the words or the vocabulary to say, I am frustrated. So what do? They throw something, or they bite, or they scratch. And it's actually not the physical event, but the communication behind it. And one of the strategies that I think, and I'm a huge fan of it, is making sure that our children understand that we are listening. Because every time they communicate and we don't understand, they feel they aren't being heard, which means we are not listening in the right way. So the first is always we are listening. And the second thing is always giving our children and our young people the tools to actually communicate the message they want to say. Because that's the other thing. Because throwing something can be I'm frustrated. It can be I'm cross. It can be I don't want that thing. So also unpicking the child, knowing the child is, I think, key in all of these.
Oh, brilliant. And I think especially if you're feeling frustrated anyway, and then you can't get your message out, it's just imagine how more frustrated that child's going to feel. It's just...
And it builds, because think about it. I'm going to quote another guy. I'm so sorry. But,
brilliant, because it's all education, isn't it? Yeah.
David Bartram, brilliant guy from the UK. Yeah. He always has the slide that says 1 million minutes. Now, anybody that's ever listened to me will know about the 1 million minutes. But 1 million minutes, according to David Bartram, is the average amount of time children spend in school from the age of 3 to the age of 18. And imagine you are now already 10. So there's 8 years left. So you've gone past at least half of those 1 million minutes, and people still don't get you. Won't you be frustrated? Won't you be angry? Won't you want to leave school? Of course. So we also see there's loads of research that actually tells us that because we don't hear our children, a lot of things go wrong for them. And if you look at dropout rates and things like that overseas, not so much in the UAE, we actually see that the most common thread is nobody listened. I spoke and nobody. We see the same thing in safeguarding often. I spoke and nobody heard me. And I think that is so key, that we learn how to speak their language.
Oh yeah, I love that. And I think listening is just so helpful in all contexts, isn't it? And it's not that hard actually, and it's so worth it. It can change so many things. And Sonia says, I love it. Can I steal it for my training in my school?
Nothing any one of us know is our own information. It's all borrowed and stealed and begged from other people. So please go ahead.
And Cliff, hi Cliff, how are you doing? He says, hi Berna, do we know if the medical insurance companies will support parents moving forward in the UAE to help with costs? This would reduce the stress that parents go through. By the way, amazing hearing you once again.
Hi Cliff, thank you so much. There are many medical aids, especially for parents who are expats, who are looking at this piece. But because it's so expensive, and if the medical aids if you don't disclose before you actually take the medical aid, it's very, very hard to get that diagnosis. But yes, there are medical aids, especially through DHA and CDA, who will support parents in this piece. Absolutely. And it will become more and more so.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everybody. We've got so many questions. I'm sure there's going to be more coming as well on Instagram, on LinkedIn. But we're going to have to go because we're running out of time. But Berna, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I know we need to do another live. But thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else you would like to say before we go?
I just want to say that if there's ever in the community of inclusion anything any of us can do for you, please reach out. There's loads of ways to reach out. And I am no expert, but I know that there's loads of people, in the UAE, Louise Dawson, myself, there's just, Catherine O'Farrell, there's loads and loads of people who are actually around and will happily answer any questions you have. So please do not sit in your mud alone. Let us sit with you.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Berna. And Sonia says thank you. And yeah, if you can put any links that you think are helpful on the post, that would be amazing. And how can people find you on LinkedIn, anywhere else?
LinkedIn is the best way to find me because I'm very old. So LinkedIn and Facebook are my go-tos, but I do check Instagram now and again.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Berna. If anybody has any questions or comments, please leave them in the post or you can message Berna directly. And I will see you next week. Thank you again, Berna. It's an absolute pleasure.
Goodbye.